everybody who wants to speak has a chance to speak. On the other hand, I wanted to just say this. We will be going into closed session later on tonight to have attorney-client privilege with our attorney on this issue of short-term rentals. And I want to, again, let everybody understand, I do not anticipate any final decision on this issue tonight. I really view this as a beginning of addressing this issue formally. So with that said, I know we have people that would like to make public comments, and I will now open the floor. And Rebecca, will you put the people on who would like to make a public comment?
Absolutely. Charlie will be our first public comment. Give me just a second. Charlie Nowbone.
Okay.
He should be able to speak, Charlie.
Charlie, are you there?
Are you muted?
I'm not sure if he just hung up, Pat. I'm not sure what just happened. He's not there anymore. We will go with Carol Gable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carol, are you there?
Elbone using Carol Gable's phone. So thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? This is Charlie Nowbone
Yes.
using Carol's phone. All right.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you all. Good evening, Mayor Taylor and Commissioners. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to address this very important issue. I'm a board member of the Dog Mountain Property Owners Association, and since 1994, a long-term seasonal resident of Highlands. I'm here to speak about short-term rentals, their current illegality, and their detrimental effect on Highlands and our single-family neighborhoods. I'm joined tonight by representatives from many of Highlands' other neighborhoods, including Satula Mountain, Sagey and Bowery Roads, and Little Bear Pen, neighborhoods that are also suffering from the explosion of short-term rentals in Highlands single-family neighborhoods. You'll hear from our neighbors of many of the negative consequences associated with short-term rentals: vandalism, noise, septic system overflows, speeding on our narrow neighborhood streets. But remember, all of these are secondary violations that only arise because the primary violation, the current illegality of short-term rentals, is not being addressed. All of these issues vanish if the town enforces its existing law. Many of us have been raising our concerns on the issue of enforcement of Highlands Uniform Development Ordinance for a number of years. When we first raised the issue with town staff more than 5 years ago in 2015, we were told the town was waiting and seeing. In the meantime, short-term rentals have exploded in Highlands single-family neighborhoods. They are overwhelming and destroying the quiet enjoyment of our homes and neighborhoods, and will ultimately destroy the fabric of our town by turning it into one huge hotel-motel complex. Without the permanent seasonal residents who've been the backbone of Highlands and its economy for decades. The time for waiting and seeing is over. It's time to enforce the existing law and protect our neighbors and neighborhoods. We've seen the future, and it's gray. In one neighborhood, if present trends continue, in the near future, more than a quarter of all homes will be short-term rentals. Realtors in town report that more than 60% of the potential buyers they now meet are looking for short-term rental properties in Highlands. There's nothing that the town can do about it. There should be no confusion. The Highlands Unified Dog Ordinance, short-term rentals are currently illegal in residential zone areas. As such, there can be no parameters. Laws clear. The existing UDO, as well as all of Highlands' prior zoning codes, go back approximately 50 years, have classified overnight accommodations as a commercial use. There is no doubt that short-term rentals are overnight accommodations. They also meet the current UDO definitions of tourist homes, hotels, or motels, depending upon their size. These short-term rentals are commercial and currently permitted all within our treatment, subject to special use. This is another for making money off of establishing and running short-term rentals argue that short-term rentals are not appropriate. The Department of State of North Carolina has already decided that short-term rentals.
Okay, I was just telling Carol when you come. Hang on a second. He said no one can hear what Charlie's saying. I'll let you talk to Carol.
Well, we can't tell that. They overposted and recognized and we just started talking to this. Okay.
All we're asking is now, honors obligations to this year.
I'm not sure Charlie has a very good phone connection because I've muted everybody and I still can't hear him.
Okay.
Can the board hear him?
I'm on.
Getting a
So,
back in half
what?
what
Yeah,
I
I'm
could
muted.
hear was
Okay.
unintelligible.
Dumb. Okay. Hello?
Carol?
Are you?
No, I'm not muted right now.
This is so stupid with this one. Hello? Hello?
Carol?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah. Amy just said that.
Is this Rebecca?
Yes, Rebecca's on. Is this Carol Gable?
It is.
We could not hear him very well. I'm
About okay. I can send him to another house with other Wi-Fi. Do you want us to? We have a device here.
we have several other
It's just
people.
we're just
do
having
you
a
have both?
really hard time hearing.
All right, Rebecca, can you hear me now?
I think you have the meeting up on 2 devices and you're giving us a lot of feedback. Sign off one
Okay,
device.
Rebecca, I'm gonna hang up one device. Okay.
You're the one that we can hear the best.
Okay. All right. Fine. Charlie, hang up that device and use my phone. They can hear my phone. Hang that one up.
Damn, they've got the phone.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. It sounds like if you don't mind, and it will indulge me, I'll just start at the beginning of my remarks.
Charlie, I would just make sure all the other devices are hung up. Better?
Jesus,
Yes.
Carol.
That is great.
Did you hear her? She said that's good.
Okay, I can't hear her now. Is your speaker on this phone?
Yeah.
Rebecca,
We
can you hear me?
Charlie. Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Okay. All right. The speaker was on the phone. Thanks so much. Good evening, Mayor Taylor and Commissioners. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to address this very important issue. I'm a board member of the Dog Mountain Property Owners Association, and since 1994, a long-term seasonal resident of Highlands. I'm here to speak about short-term rentals, their current illegality, and their detrimental effect on Highlands and our single-family neighborhoods. I'm joined tonight by representatives from many of Highlands' other neighborhoods, including Satula Mountain, Sagey and Bowery Roads, and Little Bear Pen, neighborhoods that are also suffering from the explosion of short-term rentals in Highlands' single-family neighborhoods. You will hear from our neighbors of many of the negative consequences associated with short-term rentals: vandalism, noise, septic system overflows, speeding on our narrow neighborhood streets. But remember, all of these are secondary violations that only arise because the primary violation, the current illegality of short-term rentals, is not being addressed. All of these issues vanish if the town enforces its existing law. Many of us have been raising our concerns and the issue of enforcement of Highlands UDO for a number of years. When we first raised the issue with town staff more than 5 years ago, in 2015, we were told the town was waiting and seeing. In the meantime, short-term rentals have exploded in Highlands single-family neighborhoods. They are overwhelming and destroying the quiet enjoyment of our homes and will ultimately destroy the fabric of our town by turning it into one huge hotel-motel district, which, without the permanent and seasonal residents who've been the backbone of Highlands and its economy for many decades. The time for waiting and seeing is over. It is time to enforce the existing law and protect our neighbors and neighborhoods. We've seen the future, and it's grim. In one neighborhood, if present trends continue, in the near future, more than a quarter of all homes will be short-term rentals. Realtors in town report that more than 60% of the potential buyers they now meet are looking for short-term rental properties in Highlands as investments. The future of Highlands as a true community is at risk. We believe that the town has been poorly served by the advice it has gotten from the community plan consultant and others who have said that there's nothing that the town can do about short-term rentals other than continue to wait and see. This advice is simply wrong. There should be no confusion. Under the Highlands Unified Development Ordinance, short-term rentals are illegal in residentially zoned neighborhoods. As such, there can be no grandfathering of this illegal use. The law is clear. The existing UDO, as well as all of Highlands' prior zoning codes going back approximately 50 years, have classified overnight accommodations as a commercial use. There is no doubt that short-term rentals are overnight accommodations. They also meet the current UDO definitions of tourist homes, hotels, or motels, depending upon their size. These short-term rentals are commercial uses, and as such, they are prohibited in R1 and R3 neighborhoods and subject to special use permits in R2 neighborhoods. Investors and others who are making money off of our previously peaceful single-family neighborhoods by establishing and running short-term rentals in them argue that short-term rentals are not commercial uses. This argument has no merit. The state of North Carolina has already decided that the short-term rental of a residence for a period of less than 90 days is a commercial use and classifies short-term rentals just like hotels or motels and imposes the state sales tax on them. Macon County has done the same thing. It imposes its room occupancy tax on the operation of short-term rentals. All we are asking is that the town honor its obligation to the residents of its single-family neighborhoods and enforce the existing prohibition on short-term rentals now. We appreciate and understand that the town may want to further refine the UDO to clarify the protections against short-term rentals that our single-family neighborhoods have and to regulate them in the commercial zones where they are currently allowed. But if that process is launched without also immediately strictly enforcing the current prohibition, our neighborhoods will continue to be damaged, and at some point, sooner rather than later, the damage will be irreparable. Make no mistake, choosing to delay enforcement or continuing to wait and see is not neutral. It is deciding in favor of the short-term rental industry and these illegal activities. We have sent via email to each of the commissioners a simple and straightforward resolution directing the town staff to enforce the UDO's existing ban on short-term rentals. We are asking you tonight to take this resolution up as a new business item and adopt it. The time for waiting is long past. The town also must make clear in the new community plan, which is currently in draft form, that short-term rentals as commercial activities are incompatible in Highlands single-family neighborhoods. Allow me now to introduce Lila Howland, who most of you know from her work with the Highlands Cashers Land Trust and her other volunteer efforts on behalf of Highlands.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Can you hear?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Hel- Hello?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
I can hear you. Okay. Hi, I'm Lila Howland, and I want to thank you, Mayor Taylor and commissioners, for allowing us to address you tonight. As most of you know, my husband Slocum and I have been full-time residents of Highlands for almost 20 years. In 1998, we bought a lot up on Sagey Drive, built a house there, moved in 2002, and have enjoyed the quiet residential atmosphere ever since, as have most of our neighbors. One of the reasons we chose not only Sagey Drive, but Highlands as a community was because it had strict zoning restrictions. Our fellow communities, neighboring communities such as Cashers, do not enjoy such protection from commercial development in their neighborhoods. We have counted on and depended on and trusted in you to keep our residential zoning residential. We do not want short-term rentals. I want to have a neighbor who's vested in my community, who knows what's going on and who cares what's going on. We have no objection to long-term rentals, but weekenders, trunk slammers, as some of us call them, just aren't appropriate in our neighborhoods. I hope you will respect our feelings about this. We as voters and taxpayers have every right to expect you to respect our investment in our homes and in our communities, and for you to insist that these zoning ordinances be strictly enforced and complied with. Thank you.
Hey, Pat and other members, thank you for time to listen to us. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
ma'am, we can.
Okay. Hi, I'm Vicki Heller. I'm a resident on Little Bearpen Mountain on Center Drive. My husband and I have been permanent year-round residents in Highlands for 35 years. We live in a beautiful little development. Our neighbors care about each other. We take care of our homes, and we're a great little community. Change. The most prominent being in back of me, what is called the Frog Pond House, advertises that it sleeps 18, but yet a homeowner that, a prospective homeowner that wished to purchase that house could not get a septic permit to add an additional bedroom. So how is it okay that 18 people can sleep in this house and not have any issues? Another home that is next door to me is an absentee homeowner who wishes to spend the least amount of money as they can to upkeep their property. Some of us have had to take it upon ourselves to sort of clean up and notify them as to what's going on, because they are not here and they don't know. The house next door paid well over $1 million, and they were dismayed to find out that they had purchased a home next to a VRBO as they were kept up the first night in their new home by a party of male guests on the deck. The house is constantly busy. People were here even in the COVID crisis before the vaccines. Multiple cars from multiple states. I don't think that uses good judgment. And I think that something clearly needs to be done because it is very detrimental to our neighborhoods. Thank you for listening.
Hello, thank you for hearing us. I'm Brian Baldwin, the owner of 900 Satula Road, a house at the end of Satula on Satula Mountain. And I appreciate y'all hearing us tonight very much. It is a very important issue, and getting more urgent because it's absolutely an explosion. On Satula Mountain, we have had problems with a large piece of property that the house ended up being torn down, but we still have one property that's caused problems. The police logs are indicative of how many complaints there have been on that side of the mountain. But really the issue is that what we're asking for is for the town to enforce their existing zoning, and R1 does not permit commercial use. So that's all we're asking. I think it does seem like, it's pretty clear. I'm sure you're challenged in the area of trying to enforce it, but there have to be some solutions, and that's what we're asking for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rebecca. I think that's our team right now.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay.
Next, I'm going to allow Bob McEver speak. Bob?
Okay, thank you. It's McKeever. But anyway, Vicki Heller kind of said everything that I was going to say. I live on Little Bear Pen and have had a house up there 17 years. And 4 out of the last 5 sales have gone to people renting their homes out by the night, by the weekend, or whatnot. And Vicki referred to her next door neighbor. I mean, we're over there cutting the dead rhododendrons. The landscaper says, "Hey, look, they've told us not to touch anything, just mow and blow. You've got probably 10 boxwoods just blighted and sending spores out all across the neighborhood. There's people walking up and down all the time. Their dogs are doing you know what." But the fact that one of the houses behind Vicki, of course, sleeps 18. I mean, I'm out in my front yard and I can hear them at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So anyway, it just goes without saying. It's just common sense that we're not a short-term rental town. I remember when I first moved to town, Old Edwards, I mean, to get anything through, they had to beg, plead, bar and promise the world just to get anything. And now just whatever people want to do just seems to go and without any kind of pushback. So anyway, that's my little short spiel, and I appreciate you guys and ladies giving us this forum, and I hope it something gets resolved.
Thank you, Bob. Next will be Donna Davis.
I'm not speaking. I'm just watching.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hand up. Okay.
Well, because I couldn't hear. We couldn't hear anything.
Okay.
That person was talking. Sorry. Nope. No. Thanks.
Miss Westbrook.
We did not register that we would say anything, but we can only concur with the comments that were made. It's disturbing, of course, and I'm hoping that the town will find a resolution to uphold the status of the residential areas. Thank you. Thanks everyone for making this forum available to us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next is Matt Bunting. Matt, are you there?
The mute button. An old friend. Matt Bunting, lived in town for about 10 years, and just speaking in favor of short-term rentals, I think that it's been fashionable to blame everything on them, and certainly the overcrowding, you might have a little something to do with the pandemic, as it's well noted that everyone is moving into town, in the mountain town to do their work. They're working remotely. Old Edwards promotes aggressively in Atlanta with their billboards. And the town survey pointed out that the 2 biggest issues with short-term rentals are trash and noise complaints. And I think some well-done resolutions and regulations can help this. When asked how many noise complaints they received, the police department, from short-term rentals, the answer was 6 of the last 3 years. Regular residents party as well. Trash, I think the Bear trash cans have been doing a great job. And the little regulation and fines, I think everyone's up for that. My experience has been that short-term rentals are better maintained than a lot of the full-time residents, because the appearance is directly related to their profitability. So I think outlawing is kind of extreme when the main complaints are trash and noise complaints. Let's levy some fines. Absolutely. There should not be 18 people in a house. That's insane. Let's regulate when we can. And I think all sides can get along. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Next is Krista Hayes. Krista, are you there? Krista, are you there? Krista, I've asked you to unmute, please. Are you there?
Unmute. Is that working now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you all so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. My mother, my parents, John and Tina Patterson, bought a house on Dog Mountain in the 90s. And our family has truly appreciated Highlands for many years before that. I just want to put my voice in, and on behalf of my mother also, our concern about the short-term rentals, not so much that they shouldn't exist in Highlands, but that there are areas already designated where that is appropriate, and the R1 areas should have the integrity that people bought into, allowed to continue. And I think it's really just that simple. There are places where short-term rentals can happen, and there's no reason for them to be in the R1 areas. On a more sentimental and private note, I will also say that as a grandmother, my grandchildren play on the side roads of Dog Mountain, and one of the possible rentals, short-term rentals, would be at the end of our little road, and the thought of strangers coming in and out, and just the disruption. Some of these areas were not, the lots were not designed for this type of development, so to speak. And there's no protection for us from the traffic that would ensue, and also just the discomfort of knowing that a whole suite of strangers over time would be passing through up and down that little road. So, but mostly I just think R1 is R1, and let's protect what people invested in and allow places where families can be families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Next we have Tucker and Jenny Chambers.
There we go. Yeah, can you hear me? You can.
Yep.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you, Mayor Pat Taylor, and the board for taking the time to listen to all these comments. And to all the ones that have already spoken, I'm really sorry that you've had problems with a lot of these vacation renters. We've been doing this for a very, very long time, vacation rentals, and we do have some as low as 2 nights, but most of them are here for a week, 2 weeks, sometimes 3 and 4 months during the summer. Some of our renters have been coming for decades, and some used to be homeowners here themselves. Their families, they like to come to Highlands, the same reason we like to live in Highlands. We have them sign, each of them signs a lease. They are bound to the occupancy limit is based on the number of bedrooms in the house per the Macon County Code. And I don't know how we can restrict some of the ones that are misusing their homes this way, because they're only shooting themselves in the foot. I don't know how to regulate some and not others, but all of our homeowners are very respectful of the town rules. And that's really all I have to say, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't think we've had any problems ever, any police calls to any of our houses. That's the thing.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you.
Chris Rideout is next. Chris, are you there?
There we go. Sorry about that. Unmuted. I kind of want to reiterate what Matt and Janine said. I went back and looked at your last month's minutes, and for the trash issues in the neighborhoods, there was 7 complaints, code violations. Of those 7, only 1 was a short-term rental, and 6 of them were either businesses or permanent residents, and they were all resolved. So I didn't see the issue there. As Matt said, majority, if not of these folks that have short-term rentals, which I do, and I come up to Highlands as much as possible, but I do rent it out. We keep our places up nice, and there's a ton of houses in my neck of the woods that the owner hasn't been there for years. And so when it comes to traffic, to be honest, I think that's both locals and short-term rentals. And I think that's 100% an enforcement issue. I think some of the locals, they know the roads really well, so they take them a lot quicker than I know I do. Going back to our upkeep, I mean, on my house, we put a lot of pride into it, and I think it's brought value to my neighbors' houses. And unfortunately, I think if you start trying to regulate this and restricting short-term rentals, a lot of these folks are going to go offline, and you're going to have a really hard time enforcing it. And then you're also going to lose out on some of the tax revenue that's coming in from the short-term rentals. I'll disagree with some of the things I've seen online saying how short-term rentals don't support the economy. They come up and hunker down in their house. I think it's actually the opposite. I think we support all the restaurants downtown that the locals don't go to on a weekly basis. We definitely support Bryson's and Dusty's and that kind of thing. So I'm all for, I've registered my house with the city. I'm all for regulations. I'm 100% for enforcement. I just think, outlawing them outright is you're going to cut off your face to spite your nose. I think it's going to have a drastic impact. Other folks have mentioned that there's a lot, that short-term rentals are taken away from lodging. I don't think you'll find a single hotel room right now in Highlands. So I disagree with that as well. So I do appreciate you taking the time to hear everybody's side on this, and I hope you'll consider everybody's viewpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca, who's next? Rebecca?
Bob Irvin.
Okay.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for listening to us all. I just wanted to say, in response to a couple of the last speakers, that those of us who are asking you to enforce the zoning ordinance are only asking you to say that short-term rentals are illegal in R1. R2 were not permitted, and in R3, in residential areas. The town UDO provides many locations where short-term rentals can be, but it also provides that they're not supposed to be in residential areas. And so that's what we're asking for. And if somebody says we're asking you to outlaw short-term rentals or prohibit short-term rentals, that's just not true. That's a straw man. We wouldn't ask you to do that. We couldn't ask you to do that. What we're asking you to do is enforce the ordinance that prohibits them in residential areas with the sole exception of permitted locations in R2. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Who's next, Rebecca?
Debbie Martin. Debbie, are you there? Debbie, are
Hi.
you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much. We wanted to reach out a group of the property managers and really appreciate this opportunity to be able to speak to everybody and to hear from the owners in the various neighborhoods. We have worked really hard, and I know our particular company and the group of other managers that I work with and owners work really hard to be good neighbors, and we strive. We met with the police department. Anytime that at the beginning, before the bear-proof trash cans came in, whenever we had an issue, I personally would always call the town to be able to explain how we resolved the issue. Trash being our biggest one. And we found that most of the time it was, again, a local issue, not a short-term rental. Our company, as many of the companies, actually pick up the trash at the end of each rental and take it to the dump for the owners. And after the rentals, our goal is to work within the neighborhood. And we have very stringent requirements for our guests. We ask that they honor the fact that they are in a small town. They're considerate of their noise. They cut the noise off, go inside, and we enforce that. We have not had noise complaints. In the 3 years that I've been doing it, I've had 3 noise complaints. 2 of them have just been recently, which I believe are probably more tied to the conversation that's going on. We meet with any of the owners that want to meet with us. We give our company cards out so that we can be at a property within 15 minutes max. One time we had a complaint about a bear getting into one of the trash cans, and our staff member was sitting at the trash can while the bear was still there, having to wait for the bear to leave as we attempted to hurry him on. So I say this, and I've been in a lot of conversations over the last few weeks with my counterparts, and one of the things that I've heard was, our goal is to really work hard with the town. We're not opposed to regulations. We're not opposed to enforcing those. And, just to say we want to be good neighbors. We're very concerned about the town. If short-term rentals are shut down or significantly curtailed, where are our guests going to stay? We don't have enough hotel rooms for our guests. And how are we going to fill our restaurants, and how are we going to provide the tourism for the businesses? We pay the taxes. We deliver revenue to the town. And so I think that rather than, come in and just say, bad or good, that perhaps we sit down and have conversations with each other how to make it work for everybody. Thank you, and we look forward to how the progress works in the future.
Debbie, thank you. What company are you with?
Galax Rentals.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, we have Lee Stockton. Lee, are you there?
Hello, I'm here. I just unmuted myself. We purchased a house in Wetmont. Initially as a 1031 exchange. We're real estate investors. And with the long-term idea of retiring in Highlands, we love the house. We've done a lot of work to the house after we purchased it. But in the meantime, because we're not there all that often as much as we'd like to, we do rent them out. I think echoing what Debbie was saying, we want it to be good. In fact, the very first rental, a lady, she was with UGA fundraising, so she actually hosted a party for Jack at OEI for his wedding, and they did an outdoor reception or outdoor kind of party, if you will. And one of the neighbors told us that they felt a little bit disturbed. So from then on, we curtailed all parties. We said no parties, even if if people were right by a pond, so a lot of people asked if they could have their weddings or whatever. And we said, no, we're not going to, even though it's going to be a lot more profitable. We said that's not something we want to do. The other thing was one of the neighbors mentioned something about noise. Now, I know our noise ordinance is at 11 p.m., but we've actually written in our instructions so people would move inside from the deck after 10, or if they're on the deck, for them to keep their voice down, just to be considerate to neighbors. So I think I can understand neighbors having these concerns because, you know, we're a nice town, we're a peaceful town, so we want to be great neighbors to people. That said, I think there are several things I think that are important. Number one is these short-term rentals do deliver a lot of revenue to the town. The guests, I think one of the concerns was we don't want to turn our town into a Gautenberg. The guests that we have, I imagine I've talked to a lot of the other owners and they said the same, are lawyers, doctors, we've had state senators, we've had celebrities staying at the house. So these are the kind of people that actually props up our restaurants and shops and other businesses. The other thing I think is important is wedding is a big business in Highlands. We don't have enough accommodation. So a lot of these houses accommodate for wedding guests, and ours included had done that many times. If we don't have enough accommodations for people, then the wedding business will also be curtailed, simply because, you know, if there's not enough people, they can't invite as many people. So the other thing I think is if these short-term rentals were to be terminated, I'd imagine a lot of people would be selling their houses, in which case it would put a pressure on the real estate market. As well, not only just from the supply side, but also if a real estate investor is looking to purchase, then they would choose not to purchase in the Highlands, which would further drive down the price. So you've got a pressure on supply side, pressure on demand side. By the same token, they could choose to purchase, let's say, in Cashers, because Cashers doesn't have the same kind of restrictions that Highlands would. So we have a lake house, and that same thing happened. People didn't want that change, so the neighboring town, which was actually less desirable at the beginning, got developed so much faster. So now, 30 years later, they want to make the change. So I think our town is the premier town. Let's keep it that way. I think definitely we should have it so that people who does short-term rentals need to be conscientious, to be good neighbors, and we can work together to deliver something that would be good neighbors to our long-term full-time residents, as well as something that could be business opportunities for our lovely town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Vitri Stevens. Vitri, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, can everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I'm Vitri Ravenel Stevens, and I appreciate being on this. I just wanted to speak for a few minutes. Our families have been coming to Highlands for about 30 years. I'm actually originally from Charleston, South Carolina. And my husband and I have two young children, and we've been coming and renting a house for the past 6 or 7 years for a week. We both work. And we love Highlands, and we actually did a 1031 exchange as well. We had a place in Charleston that we sold and bought a wonderful little home, and have put a lot of work into it, and we come up as much as we can. And part of it is our plan is to retire in Highlands, but in order to be able to do so, we've hired a wonderful property management company, and they've rented it for us and given us a lot of guidance as far as age restrictions and things like that. And I also feel that just from traveling and staying in Highlands, I feel that the short-term rentals do go, and they go to Rosenthal's, they go to Cio Rico, they go to all the fabulous restaurants. And that really does help the town and community. I just think that there's bad apples everywhere, it's residents or short-term. And I just think the town just has to kind of lock down on those people. But I think cutting out, I believe the same thing that the lady who spoke before me said. I think cutting out short-term rentals is really going to hurt Highlands. And I think that the people that live there are not going out to dinner every night and aren't going to all the shops. Those are the people who are on vacation. And I just worry that if we were to stop that, then everyone would kind of flee to Cashers or Lake Toxaway or the other areas, and Highlands would lose that revenue. But those are my thoughts, and I do hope we can come to a happy medium, because I understand the people who spoke, their concerns, but I do hope we can come to a happy medium and keep the short-term rentals. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Bill Long.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. I am president of the Dog Mountain Property Owners Association, and I've been on Dog Mountain for 27 years as a part-time resident.
Hello.
Bill?
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Apologize. I'm not sure where I cut back off, but I'll just say again, I'm a long-term part-time resident. Been here for 27 years, and we joined the town, petitioned the town for the protections, and one of those protections is that we're zoned R1. And so, if someone is buying into a neighborhood that's zoned R1, they buy that with the recognition that those are protected. It literally says overnight accommodations in the town's code are a commercial use. It goes on to say that commercial uses are prohibited in R1 and in R3, and only with a special use permit. So I'm confused when people say and bring up the red herring of we try to not have our guests, our hotel guests, make much noise or throw out much trash or speed on your roads, when the fundamental issue is if you purchased your house to put it on rentals in an R1 or R3 and didn't get a special use permit in R2, you're violating the current ordinance. It's not whether or not someone is littering or speeding or making too much noise. Those are secondary offenses. The primary offense is that overnight accommodations are a commercial use, and commercial uses are not allowed in our neighborhoods. So to say that they're not littering is a little bit like saying I got stopped for DUI.
I think we lost him again.
He looks muted on my screen. There he is.
Okay. So I'm not sure why it still. So I guess I'm saying that the secondary offenses that everyone is talking about, we can try to solve and settle, and that we should enforce those secondary offenses. I think you're missing the point. I'm not sure if you heard this, but it's like the drunk driver who is stopped by the police and he said, I didn't hit anybody. I didn't have a wreck. I didn't kill anybody. But no, that's not the point. You can't drink and drive. You can't have an overnight accommodation in an R1 or an R3 and only with a special use permit in R2. So it's not the fact that you're deciding to stop your guests, your hotel guests, from littering. It's that you purchased your house for rent in a neighborhood that prohibits it. You did a 1031 exchange, you did your investment in this area, and you weren't allowed to do that. And now you're saying, but wait a minute, my guests are quiet, and my guests don't speed, and my guests don't litter. And that's not the point. You can do a short-term rental in a place that allows it. We're not against that. We're not against short-term rentals. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca, do we have anyone else?
Yes, I believe so. Can you hold on just a second, Pat? We're having a little bit of a technical difficulty here. Matt's working on something.
I had on my list James Worrell wanted to speak.
He spoke at the beginning.
Okay.
No, he didn't.
I don't think he did.
Oh, was it Bill Worrell?
I have James Worrell.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
You're going to have to wait till Matt gets this fixed. I can't do a whole lot right now.
Okay.
Something really quick.
Pat, I'm getting an alarm from Betsy. I'll be right back.
Okay. You still there, Rebecca?
I am still here. Matt's still working. Give him just a second.
Okay.
James Worrell should be able to speak.
All right.
Thanks,
James.
Rebecca. Thanks, Mayor. I really appreciate it. Good evening, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And I really want to thank you for all your hard work and service to the community. And thanks for really what you're going through right now, because I understand Town Hall is closed. I'm James Worrell, Little Bearpin Mountain, where we've owned a home for about 10 years. I'm here to speak with you about regulation of whole house short-term rentals. I know that's what we've been talking about. I've interacted with the mayor, administration, and board on this topic, so I think you know me. So I'd just like to make a few brief comments at this point as you continue consideration of what to do about STRs. The issue at hand is whole house short-term rentals. This is the rental of a house for less than 30 days where the owner occupant is not present. If you Google it, that's the definition that will pop up. If you look at legislation around the country about it, that's the standard definition. There's no other definition. There's no standard 4-day rental definition, no 3 days used in legislation, no 7 days, etc. The best practice throughout North Carolina and the US is the standard definition of STRs is rentals of less than 30 days. This type of rental has boomed since the advent of online booking sites. It's interesting that some folks have talked about tonight about we need them and they're an important part of our economy. Highlands has had a huge amount of growth. There were 65 of these things in 2017. The town's own planning consultant suggested it's something over 600 right now in one of our public meetings. Our growth prior to 2017 did not need these things. My position has been and remains that whole house short-term rental STRs should not be allowed in single-family neighborhood zones R1 and R2. The zoning ordinance, when written, clearly identified R1 and R2 as single-family housing zones. Just because this new use driven by online booking technology is not specifically excluded in the language because it did not exist when the ordinance was written, does not change the intent of the law. Everyone who has looked at this problem knows the issues that the STRs in neighborhoods have caused. Elimination of affordable housing, illegal events, noise, safety issues, and the degradation of the character and fabric of the community. Hundreds of communities throughout the U.S. and many here in North Carolina have addressed this issue. The best practices of communities of quality, which I believe Highlands is and can remain, has been to ban them in single-family residential neighborhoods because the stability that that population, whether full-time or seasonal, provides to the community. Those residents are the ones that fund the infrastructure of the community, not just through their tax dollars, but through their involvement and contributions. It is those people that volunteer at the Highlands Literacy Council, not renters, not absentee investor owners of rental houses. They volunteer packing clothes and meals at the Emergency Council. It is the residents who support the PAC, who support the land trust, the Bascom, the hospital. You understand my point. The people who live here create the sense of community that has made Highlands such a great place. The proliferation of houses for rent in neighborhoods has changed that, and the town needs to return to its vision. I just want to mention it was great to hear Vicki Heller, who's in my neighborhood, and Bob McKeever, who's in my neighborhood. And someone said, one of these days we'll have a neighborhood that has 25% of their houses as rentals. Little Bear Pen has more than 20% of his houses as investor-owned rentals. As I provided to the town before, there are dozens of examples of great towns that have banned STRs in single-family neighborhoods because their vision for their town is to remain a high-quality town for residents and tourists. Several in North Carolina have done it, including Asheville, Blowing Rock, Wilmington, and others. Some great examples nationwide are Carmel by the Sea, California, Charleston, South Carolina, Aspen, Colorado. There is a stark contrast between towns that ban STRs to protect neighborhoods and those that embrace STRs. Do we want to be like Carmel, California, or Gatlinburg, Tennessee? Do we want to be like Aspen or Helen, Georgia? It's important to note that these great towns did not split the baby. They don't have STRs in neighborhoods, period. No having some STRs or grandfathering some STRs. They decided single-family neighborhoods would be single-family neighborhoods and STRs would be in other zoned areas. I encourage the town to take action now. Get us back on track and please do whatever it takes. Our neighborhoods were never supposed to have these unhosted whole house short-term rentals. I've given examples of what other towns have done. Dog Mountain has a proposal to get rid of them and I support them. But do whatever it takes to ban STRs in R1 and R2 and strengthen our community for the future. Thank you for your consideration and thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
Thank you, James. Rebecca, do we have any more people that'd like to make a public comment?
No one else has their hand up, Mr.
All right.
Taylor.
Okay, very good. Hearing no other public comment, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, and that would be to review and approve the agenda. Before I entertain a motion to approve and review the agenda, I would say that we need to follow the current protocols on Zoom meetings where I will call on each commissioner to cast their vote. Okay, do I have any changes or questions about the proposed agenda?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Next, I will start calling, starting with Commissioner Patterson. What is your vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Callaway? Aye. Commissioner Dotson,
Aye.
Commissioner Steeler,
Aye.
and Commissioner Haynes.
Mayor, I wanted to talk about the planning board appointment when we get to the consent agenda.
Well, that'll be fine, but I would like for you now to cast a vote.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next thing will be the reports from the mayor and the board. And let me go ahead and start with my report. One of the things we had with Fred was, and I checked with Commissioner Steeler, who monitors this in his role as a golf superintendent. We had 9.3 inches of rain on Monday through Thursday. That was a lot of rain. We were very concerned about, damage to the town. I did a ride through yesterday, and I was very pleased that most of our roads have held up very well. I was amazed that Big Bear Pen was in good shape after that rain. We did have spotty power outages in some cases of some flooding and backup in floodplains, but compared to some of our neighbors, we did very well. I know we're all concerned about Haywood County and Canton, where they had the Pigeon Rivers flood, and they're still dealing with that type of serious damage. I also want to give a shout out to Bryson's Construction Company at our fire department site. Before the rain, they went in and even put additional silt fencing and protection to try to mitigate any kind of wash off, and that was a successful effort. Other thing I would like to say, we had a good meeting on COVID with our medical experts, Tom Neal, and all of our community doctors on the Zoom meeting on Tuesday night. And then I also had the honor of presenting to the volunteers last Friday at their celebration of the volunteers that operated the Highlands Cashiers Plateau Vaccination Initiative, the resolution that the town board of commissioners had voted on to recognize that volunteer effort. I presented that plaque to the volunteers, and also I did a mayor's proclamation saluting Tom Neal for his leadership in organizing and operating those clinics. It was kind of a bittersweet event. Everybody was wearing masks, and everybody was talking about, as we now know, about resuming those clinics as we go into the fall when we have to start dealing with booster shots and so forth. The other thing, that's all I have, actually. So I will turn it over to any commissioners who would like to issue a report at this time.
Mayor?
Sure.
We're getting a lot of complaints about people speeding around blind curves. Folks on Little Bear Pen are scared to death to pull out on the 64 with all the traffic. I talked to Josh about it. I know one person was almost killed going area you run in all the time. You're very familiar with the blind curves. Josh told me to get with Lamar, and Lamar and I talked about the possibility of putting up radar speed signs. And I understand y'all talked about that before, but traffic is so much heavier than it's ever been. And I'd just like to ask the staff to look into the chief and Lamar and Josh to look into the radar speed signs and see if there are any grant funds we could find. And we got to do something. It's very dangerous.
Okay.
I had one other question. We don't have the minutes now, but I thought at the last meeting that we agreed to ask the consultants that are doing the comprehensive plan to bring us back written recommendations to the zoning ordinance to address short-term rentals.
Josh, would you like to respond to that? I don't recall that exactly.
I don't recall that, no.
We can ask the police chief to look at the radar sign incident. I know that on the Little Bear Pen, that might be a solution to help slow people down coming on that curve. Okay. Okay. Any other reports? Hearing none, I'll call on our town manager to give his report at this time.
Well, as most of you know, this week, due to several cases of COVID here in Town Hall, we had to closed town hall. Thank you for bearing with us. If you have any bills, they can be dropped off in the bill box, or you can do those electronically. Our employees that are struggling with COVID right now are very sick. We have had one that seems to have recovered, but the rest of them are still struggling. So I would just ask that everybody remember them in your thoughts and prayers this week for full recovery.
Josh, no one's hospitalized, are they?
We have had one hospitalized since Saturday. What I understand, they got to come home this afternoon on oxygen, which is a good thing. Still very serious.
And let me add one thing. Josh, after the August 2nd meeting with the medical experts, did get with Tom Neal and organized a clinic for vaccination. We had some employees that responded. I would urge all of our employees who have not been vaccinated at this time to reconsider their positions and get the vaccine. Go ahead, Josh. I'm sorry to interrupt.
So we, with that being said, with the limited staff, and we'll discuss this later under COVID protocols, we may have to be closed one more week. We are working from home. I want to thank Matt Schuler and the IT department for putting together computers the way we could log in from home and basically work from home like we were right here at the office and our network. Also, he organized the phones to where they would ring to Rebecca and Francis' cell phone at home. So all the calls that come into town hall are being answered. Those messages are being transferred to the proper department and they're being answered. So I think it's worked very well. So I just want to commend Matt, Rebecca, and everybody involved for that. On some other notes, as the mayor said, the fire department held up very well during the rain. I was very concerned about that. Bryson's did go in, put some additional erosion control measures in, and they held up well. As you've probably seen, the footers were finally poured. We had some issues with concrete. John Crow, our concrete contractor, did get those poured, working with the concrete company. We're going up with the elevator shaft first. That is what you see being erected now. Once that is completed, they'll start on the interior wall that separates the bays from the finished area, and then they'll start on the exterior wall. So in the next few weeks, you'll really start seeing a change there on site. Also, as you know, we had resurfacing back in the spring of Main Street in 64 and 28. And with that, the DOT is going to come in and enhance some of our curb ramps on Main Street to ensure that they're ADA compliant. They're going to be coming in just after the Labor Day holiday to start that. So you will see some slowdown on Main Street. They'll be blocking off different intersections there and routing traffic around while they work on those. It's a lot of concrete work and ramping and things that they'll be doing after the Labor Day holiday, probably continue on through the end of the month. So that's what will be occurring there. Also, just want to remind everybody the Labor Day holiday is Monday, September 6th, and Town Hall will be closed. That's all I have.
Okay. All right. Our next item is the consent agenda, item 5. Any questions about the consent agenda?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Unfortunately, our town website says there are no vacancies on the planning board, and there's an appointment. I don't have any problems with that individual, but it seems like we shouldn't be appointing somebody when our website says there are no vacancies.
I've talked with Josh about this whole issue about the vacancy thing. Josh, would you like to respond about how we're going to correct our website?
Well, I know Commissioner Hang has brought this up a couple of times. We're always reaching out, trying to get folks to serve on our zoning board and planning board, and it seems like it's very difficult to get people to volunteer for those. And I understand it does take time. We do have, in the past, we have had it set up where we showed vacancies. And at this point, I've talked to Michael, and basically what we're going to do, and he may have already changed it, is basically say if you're interested in a board or committee within the town of Highlands, is please fill out the attached form, submit it so that we can put it in a file, and then we will sort through those when we do have a vacancy. I think that would be the best way to do that. But again, we need the volunteers. We're needing those for certain vacancies that come up. Some on the planning board, have to step down for certain reasons. Then the zoning board, we have that rotation according to state statute that they have to come off for a year. So we're always looking for people to serve. So please go on and fill out that committee application.
Okay, and let me follow up and just go ahead and announce. I know will have an opening on the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and I'm also, from the information I'm getting, anticipating because of a move, an ABC board appointment also. So again, if anyone would like to apply as the person that was will be appointed to the planning board, please, put in an application, and then that can be reviewed when there is a change in one of these boards. Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay. Let me go ahead and call the question. Commissioner Patterson, what is your vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Callaway?
Aye.
Commissioner Dotson?
Aye.
Commissioner Steeler?
Aye.
And Commissioner Haynes?
Not voting.
Okay, that it will be viewed as a yes vote. Thank you. All right, our next item would be the public hearing on Michael Mathis.
Thank you, Mayor. In using a North Carolina School of Government provided checklist, staff was able to make all the necessary ordinance amendments and bring our UDO into compliance with state statute. Shortly after the last revisions were approved, we learned that one of the checklist items never got changed. The ordinance applies to all development approvals. According to state statute, all development approval applications now have a 1-year vesting period. The exception of this ordinance is the issuance of a building permit, which remains at 6 months. The Planning Board reviewed this item on June 28, 2021, and recommended approval. The recommendation is to approve the UDO amendment consistent with the town's land use plan. And Mayor, another thing, we may need to open the public hearing for this.
Correct.
I move we open the public hearing.
All right, do I have a second? Okay, let me go through and do a vote. Commissioner Patterson, your vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Callaway?
Aye.
Commissioner Dotson?
Aye.
Commissioner Steeler? Commissioner Steeler? I think he's on mute.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I had to step away. I approve.
Okay, and Commissioner Haynes?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, we now have a public hearing, and the first item would be staff comments.
So, Mayor, I went ahead and give my staff comments. So, if you want to open it up to the public.
Okay. The next would be, do we have any public comment? Rebecca, do we have anyone who would like to make a statement?
No one has their hand up. Let me just make sure.
Okay, we'll take our time.
Nobody is raising it, so I think we're okay.
Okay, do I have a motion that we close the public hearing?
So moved.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
And let me get a vote on each person. Commissioner Patterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Callaway?
Aye.
Commissioner Dotson?
Aye.
Commissioner Steeler?
Aye.
And Commissioner Haynes?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item would be council action. Do we have a motion to approve? Go ahead.
I make a motion that we approve the recommendations of the to our UDO.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let me go ahead and call the vote. Commissioner Patterson, your vote?
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Callaway?
Aye.
Commissioner Dotson?
Aye.
Commissioner Steeler?
Aye.
And Commissioner Haynes.
Aye.
Thank you. So we have now approved the compliance with the 60D development approvals. All right, our next item would be number 7, Winship Partner LLP subdivision, Hope Circle, preliminary and final plat approval request. Mr. Mathis.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And Rebecca, Stuart Foster's called in. He is under the 828-743-4154 number.
Stuart, you were there. If you could unmute. You there?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we've got you.
Okay.
So I'll just walk back over. This was brought up at the last month's meeting. So a preliminary plat was submitted to the Planning Department by Winship Partners LLP concerning a property subdivision at 655 Holt Circle. Currently, the property is 10.39 acres located in the R1 zoning district and the critical area of the town's watershed. According to the town's Unified Development Ordinance, 8.2.1 dimensional standards, the minimum lot size for a property located in the R1 zoning district and the critical area of the town's watershed 3 is 1 acre. According to the preliminary and final plat prepared by L. Stephen Foster and Associate, the 10.39 acre parcel will be split into 2 lots. The first lot is 5.42 acres and the second lot is 4.97 acres. Both properties will, 1, share an existing driveway, 2, are already connected to town utilities, and 3, are separately metered. During last month's town board meeting, a concern was raised about the shared driveway extending to more than 2 lots, which would violate the town's shared driveway ordinance, which is 10.4.1b. After speaking with the town's attorney, it is required that the survey and the deed indicate that the road shown crossing the southern line on the plat described herein is not an appurtenance, nor is intended as an easement or street accessing other property. Again, the planning board did review this item on June 28, 2021, and the recommendation is to approve the Winship Partners LLP preliminary and final plat as submitted.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the board?
Yeah, is that road an old logging road that went to the old Reese home in the back?
They do. Stuart, if you want to answer that or correct me if I'm wrong, the old logging road is shown, but the one in question was an actual, I think it's either gravel or paved, and it actually stretches all the way down to Miss Woodruff's property.
That's correct. The one that goes up to the north on the 5.42 acre tract is just an old soil road, kind of grassed. Runs back there to a rock yard, just where somebody's dumped some old stone and stuff. The one that was in question was to the southern portion of the 4.97 acre tract, and that did run through Jane Woodruff's other property. It all connected it together, and we've added the notes that Jake Howard asked.
So is that logging road going to be abandoned? The reason I ask, it cuts through my property.
I don't know the answer to that. As far as the old logging road, we only crossed, we brought it to where it crossed the other boundary line at. There shouldn't be any type of an easement through there, nothing to come up in the research that I found.
Well, Alan Marsh wanted it kept open at one time.
Right.
And that's who I got the property from.
Right. Is that the one that's listed on the plat as Old Road?
As what?
Is that the one that's listed on the plat as Old Road?
No.
And I don't know how to answer the question because I'm not exactly positive which road it is you're talking about.
It used to be the main road that went into the Reese property.
Would that be the property that's now owned by William Keith Jackson?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Donnie, that Jackson, that they back up to the Woodruff property on Cobb Road.
Is that off of Thistle Drive?
Yeah, right before Thistle. Yes.
Well, that old logging road used to come out somewhere on Thistle at one time. And it just grew up.
Jay has his hand raised.
Go ahead. You got to unmute. Unmute.
Hello.
Okay.
When I looked at that, what I interpreted that to be would be that there would be access from one place to another, but it would not be access through from one group of properties to another. So, Donnie, I know that your lot is above or to the north of that. That would not be a means of transportation by anybody to get from one side or the other to another road. It's just a way of getting across from one lot to the other. So it would not be a public access. And I believe, Stuart, didn't you put some recommended language on that map that said that it was not to be a public access or something like that? I don't have that map in front of me.
Yeah, I put all the notes that Jake Howard had asked, that on the map that it says not a through easement or street on the shared driveway. And then I also went a little bit farther and went ahead and put what he had said to be written into the deed. I put that into my notes up top.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Donnie?
Well, for clarification, does that mean that the homeowners cannot come onto my road?
Yeah, they wouldn't have any.
Yeah. Okay, because it was open at one time, according to Alan, that they could have access.
I don't think this opens up any roads. This just limits it from one lot to the other.
Can we make sure it gets in there that it's eliminated?
There might be some way of doing that, some street closure thing. But I think that the recording of this map, the way it is with those notations, it pretty much establishes the fact that nobody can get through there except for the people who own those two lots, back and forth between the two lots.
Good.
Donnie, are you saying that you've got a road on your property or an older road on your property that's not shown on this survey?
That is correct. And Alan wanted to keep it as part of the property in case he ever needed to access it. And I don't know if that's ever been transferred over in any deeds.
So is it forking off of this, what's shown as the old road coming towards you, or?
Yeah, when you come off the whole circle onto my drive, if you go immediate left, it's to the bottom of my yard. And it's that old dirt road that went all the way back.
So it actually starts on your property.
Correct.
So then it seems to me that you'd have the access, the right to close it off. But if their deed,
I think you would. I think you would
have
that right.
Not call for an easement across your property, then there is not an easement.
And for the purposes of just the town's business, what this designation means is that this is not an open street. This is not a new thoroughfare. for anyone else to use. This is just a private road that is for the use between those two lots. It doesn't involve anyone else's or the public's rights in there.
Okay.
So for the town of Highlands, this means that is not a public road or street, but it is a means of access from one lot to the other.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Any other questions?
I do have one other question for Michael. On page 53, Planning Board reviewed this item on June the 28th. You're referring back to their original review, or they've reviewed it since the concern about the driveway?
It was the original review. They didn't review the amendment.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't have anything else, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second. Have a second. Buzz, did you do the second?
Yeah, I'll do a second.
Okay. Let me go ahead and call the vote. Commissioner Patterson, your vote, please.
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Callaway. Aye. Commissioner Dotson.
Aye.
Commissioner Steeler.
Aye.
And Commissioner Hayne.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. The next item on the agenda would be number 8, the Ellis annexation request. Michael Mathis.
Yes, thank you again, Mayor. Rebecca, Wiley Ellis might be on here, and if he is, I ask that he raise his hand. I don't see his name a part of the attendees, but I'll go ahead and start with his petition. So last month, the petition for annexation of the town of Highlands was submitted by Wiley Ellis. Currently, Mr. Ellis owns a 44.36 acre tract that is contiguous with the Ravenel subdivision. Attached to this memo is a survey by L. Stephen Foster and Associates, a letter addressed to the town of Highlands from attorney Fred Jones explaining Mr. Ellis's position, and an aerial zoning image showing the subject property in relation to the town limits. At the discretion of the board, town staff will certify this annexation request and send it through the process of a conventional zoning. And that's all I have for staff comment.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I had one question. Looking at the aerial map, there seems to be a rectangle up in the kind of the northwest corner. What is that?
Yes, and I wish he was on here to explain this, so I'm going to try to say what I think.
He is on here, Michael.
Oh, okay.
Claire.
Okay.
It's Claire.
Oh.
Well, it's
Wiley.
Claire is my wife. So the answer, Amy, is that currently that the property is shown as 2 parcels for tax purposes. But Stuart Foster's survey, which was filed as a part of the annexation petition, it combines that, and there is a deed of combination that has been recorded, which I can supply to the town. I just got it back from the clerk that shows it as 1 parcel, but that it is all 1 parcel for purposes of annexation.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
So our protocol now is to set a public hearing or to send it to the planning board?
Yes, we got to certify it. So Gibby will have to do her stuff, and then I'll go ahead and set the conventional zoning. We'll have 2 different processes go, one for annexation, one for the zoning as well. So we'll just make a motion to certify it. Is that not correct, John?
Yes. So the board has to ask Gibby to go through it and certify it and bring it back for public hearing, to set a public hearing the next meeting.
Okay.
So I make the motion that we approve the certification of the annexation request.
Second.
Okay. Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let me go ahead and call the vote. Commissioner Patterson, your vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Callaway.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dotson,
Aye.
Commissioner Steeler,
Aye.
and Commissioner Haynes.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, we'll move forward with that process then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Ms. Ellis. Okay, item number 9, the Highlands Food and Wine Festival. Casey Reed is here of 11 Events to give us an update on the plans for the Food and Wine Festival. Casey, are you on?
Hi, yes, Casey's here, but actually David Bach, the president of Highlands Festivals, Inc., will speak to this subject.
Okay, very good, David.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm there. Thank you, Mayor and Board, Town Board, for the opportunity to come before you on a busy night. We are just coming back to ask permission to use the town facilities that we've done over the last 4 or 5 years for the Highlands Food and Wine Festival. You have the packet of information. We're doing the second weekend in November as usual with the same events that we usually do, starting Thursday night event in a big tent at Kelsey Hutchison Park. Friday, the trucking event at the Bascom. Saturday, the main event on Main Street between 4th and 5th Street. And then Sunday, again, the Sunday shindig, as we call it, back in the big tent at Kelsey Hutchison Park. So we just would like to do the things we've done over the last few years. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it last year because of COVID, but like to plan to go forward with it this year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of David? I'd entertain a motion to permit the Food and Wine Festival to proceed with their use of the venues in the town.
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay. Let me go ahead and call the vote. Commissioner Patterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Callaway? Okay. Commissioner Dotson?
Aye.
Commissioner Steeler?
Aye.
And Commissioner Haynes?
Aye.
Thank you. And thank y'all for putting on the Food and Wine Festival, Casey and David. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Mhm. Item number 10, Chamber Events request. And that would be Kay McCann. I believe Kay will be with us, or if not, Tim Moore. Who is going to speak with the chamber for the chamber tonight?
Who was the other person, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Moore. Jerry Moore.
He was on.
I don't see either one of them on there. Or Cannon?
Kay McCann.
Well, he was there a second.
Kay is not on here.
Jerry.
There's Jerry. There's Jerry.
Jerry keeps
Okay.
going.
Oh, no. I thought I saw Jerry.
He's there.
I did too.
Yeah, he's got his hand up.
Okay.
That's why it went to the top. And when they put their hand up, they go to the top.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, Jerry. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. Just a couple things I'd like to present is one, we've already gone through Leicester with the rec park, and we're just going to use the back parking lot for a community shred event from 9 a.m. until 12 noon on September the 24th. It'll be free to the community, and anybody that would like to make donations, we are going to donate any of the money that is received to the International Friendship Center, Pisgah Legal Services, and one other charity I can't think of right this second. But that's going to be on September 24th, and we've already spoken with Lester, but Kay just wanted the board to be aware. The other item is for Halloween, and we would like to extend trick-or-treating up 4th Street towards the Ugly Dog Pub. And I know that Kay has spoken with Chief of Police, Sissy Holland, and she was in agreement with it, but we wanted to bring it to the board's attention as well. And those are the only 2 items that I have this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Chief, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any comments. We usually man that street anyway. We've always had it blocked off. We do have someone patrolling that area. So it wouldn't be anything different than we've already been doing in years past from the past 10 years that I can recall. So it's not that difference of an issue for us.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve the extension of trick-or-treating to 4th Street and approve the shredding event.
Mayor, I do have one question to the chief.
Okay.
Chief, on the closure on 4th Street, where would that happen?
Well, normally we close it at Church Street, but we could just move that closure on up to South Street. Or actually, I think we close it at South Street. So just before Ugly Dog. So we actually could just move the closure there at South and then make it angled up to the South Extension. And if they want to come out there, then they could come out that way. We could block off that one side and just have them go. If they wanted to go, then they could turn in, like go through Bryson's if they needed to get out that way to get back to 106. Or if y'all got any better suggestions, just let me know.
So folks coming into town on 28, unaware of an event, are going to be stopped at South. They would be routed past the doctor's offices and then turned on 5th and headed back into town.
Well, we've always had that blocked off. So right off the top of my head, I would have to look at our mapping that we have in previous years, but we'll figure out a way to mark that off to where they come in. Probably what we'd have them do is just have a detour right there at South Street, and then they could go out 5th, down to 5th, and out that way, because we wouldn't let them go through Main Street anyway.
Right.
So we would just block it there and have the detour over to South Street to 5th Street, and then down that way. And if they wanted to bypass town, obviously, then they could go through down 5th and down Carolina Way or any of the other side streets.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve the road closure for Halloween.
And the shredding event?
And the shredding event.
Okay, very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, let me go ahead and call the question. Commissioner Patterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Callaway? Okay. Commissioner Dotson?
Aye.
Commissioner Steeler?
Aye.
And Commissioner Haynes?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, our next item.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it. All right, our next item on the agenda would be the Big Bear Pen Tower Attachment Discussion. Matt Schuler.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, and I know that Chuck Cooper is probably in on this call, and if he would like to say something after Matt talks, we'll be happy to hear what Mr. Cooper has to say. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. A few weeks ago, Josh asked me if I could take a look at the tower to determine Mr. Cooper had spoke with Verizon, and that he had a concern that his antennas, the Verizon's antennas, were too close to his antenna. And so I started doing some research. I flew the drone, and I'll try to share that image with you. Let's see. Can I share my screen?
I can let you.
Okay. Is that better? As far as the sound goes, and then Rebecca's going to give me permission to share the screen. Just a second. Okay, there we go.
You should be able to.
Okay, can you see this screen?
Yes.
Everybody? Okay.
Yes.
This is a drone view from the top of the tower. And I don't know if that's zooming in on your screen or not, but in this area, just below the top antenna there that's orange colored, that one belongs to Chuck Cooper and WHLC. And then the gray, white colored antennas, they are Verizon's. And then if you'll see the white boxes that look sort of like a white suitcase, that's actually a radio. So there has been some problems. Verizon's had capacity issues over this summer as the population swelled. So about a month back, Verizon had dispatched one of their contractors out to the area. He was going to change the radio, the white suitcase looking boxes there. And the antennas were not going to be changed. I did verify that with the Verizon technician. Mr. Cooper had a concern that these antennas were already too close to his. And so we took the drone up. This antenna, you can see, is 96 inches. Now, I did not climb the tower to verify all of these. I took the engineering. So if you can see a post, let's see, just below. Let's see if I can draw in this a second. Just in that area, are y'all seeing my drawing?
Yes.
Okay. In that area, there's a post, and that post is 100 feet tall on the tower. So Verizon mounts at what they call a center mount. And so at roughly the center of the antenna, they mount that portion at 100 feet. So that was also what the town board approved back when we allowed Verizon to get on the tower. So they are mounted in the position that they are supposed to be on. Are you seeing now a set of plans? Okay, hold on just a second. Let me change my share if I can. Okay, and then I'll go back and then I'll share this one. Okay. So this is what was proposed at the time. You'll see that the proposed lessee antennas was 100 feet above ground level, and that was at the center mount. So you can see that a portion of the antennas do go above 100 feet, and that is what we approved at the time. And you'll see below those in gray the existing antennas. It says 80-foot AGL above ground level. And then existing WHLC radome is 88 feet above ground level. Well, that is exactly what I scaled this. I'm flipping back and forth. I apologize. That is what I scaled this image at. So 96 inches, and I put a mark there and measured that in AutoCAD, and then I moved it over to the plate above, and that is 96 inches as well. So you see Mr. Cooper's antenna, the top of it is actually 108 feet. That was where it was installed at. So from what I can tell, I believe Mr. Cooper's antenna is about 2 feet below what he filed for with the FCC. That may be some of the issue. So that was what I found out. But I'll also show you another document as soon as I can find it. There it is.
So Matt, you're saying he wants it tall, 2 feet higher then, or what's the?
Well, his concern was that that Verizon had mounted too close to him, and Verizon actually mounted exactly where the town board approved it to be.
Okay.
Cooper was under the impression that his antenna was at the 110-foot mark. And from everything that I can find out, it is actually at 108 feet. So I believe his antenna is about 2 feet too low. And so that was what I found out in my analysis. So so I'll just I'll turn that over to you, and I'll let Mr. Cooper also speak to that. But that's what I saw, was that it's about 2 feet too low. But it looks like everything's exactly what we approved a few years back when we allowed Verizon on the tower. Everyone is mounted in exactly where we approved it to be. I believe Mr. Cooper was at that meeting as well. So that's what I found out in my report.
Is Chuck with us?
He is. If he will unmute, I've asked him to unmute. Let me see if I can. Chuck, can you hear us?
Hello?
He's moved over to speak. I can't seem to hear him.
Let me just ask Matt a question. What is your solution? What would be the solution? The radio antenna going up 2 feet?
Well, if Mr. Cooper moved up to 2 feet, that would obviously put 2 more feet in between he and Verizon. I'm not sure the impedance of his signal. He was worried about the Verizon antennas being too close to his and impeding his signal in the downtown area, was my understanding. So I don't know. I did go and put my vehicle radio on 100.5, or excuse me, 104.5, and drove around all over town. I heard it very clear. So some sort of a report to know exactly the signal impedance or whatever, I really wouldn't know where to go from here, other than to say if he's worried about it, he could move his antenna up 2 more feet and still be in compliance with the FCC. So that would be all I know. At this time, the Verizon did not come and install the radios. That's why the town still has the capacity issue with anybody with a Verizon cell phone. Cooper did not lower the radiation on his antenna so that the Verizon tech could climb the tower. He said that he would do so, to my understanding, he would do so once he got things straightened out with him. So okay. I'd have to let him speak to the rest of that.
Okay.
Matt, I have a question. Who put the WHLC's tower at 108 feet? Who installed it then?
Mr. Cooper had asked that the town do that, so the town actually paid for that. And what happened, the original mount was at 88 feet, so 8 feet above the top of the tower. And I believe the tower climbers carried that same exact mount up and just mounted it on the next leg of the tower. So that would have installed it at 108 feet. So we did that for him. We paid for that. And then we also paid for the licensing of that as well. A few months back, we repaid him for that.
Stupid question, Matt, but can it go 2 more feet, or is it? I mean, it looks like you're kind of maxed out on that photo.
I think the pole was only 8 feet. I think that's the whole thing. So if the pole were to be changed to 10 feet, and obviously let me share that screen again. Obviously you can see that there's huge bolts down below. So the pole itself is actually longer than 10 feet now, but it would need to be just extended or moved up. Let's see if I can get out of my drawing here and go back to the normal one. There we go.
And that requires somebody to climb all the way up top to do that?
It would require a tower climber to do that. It's not too big of a deal. might require making sure there's enough slack in his cable as it goes up to make sure that there's enough of slack there. But it looks like there may be enough to move it on up somewhat anyway.
You're talking about moving it up without replacing that pole that it is on.
Well, possibly. That's what I said. I'm not sure if it actually if there's enough there, but the more, I suppose, the more concern would be if there's enough slack in his cable. Those cables are a really expensive cable. It's actually filled with a specific gas, and forgive me, I don't remember the name of it, but that keeps the sheathing dry inside, and so it's a pressurized cable. So that would be the more concern. The pole itself, probably the least amount of cost if the cable were to have to be extended.
Matt, can you put the diagram back up of the original permit?
Yes, let's see. Give me just a second. I want to make sure to give you the correct one. I've had a few up here. That's that. Okay, that.
Okay. So it seems to me we don't know, never did know on the 100 feet above ground level with the top of the tower itself, and then obviously the vertical antennas that you're showing 4 of them around there. We never knew the height of those above the 100-foot level. Is that correct? We didn't know how long those antennas were.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So they may have indeed interfered with WHLC's signal just because of their natural height and our not knowing that was going to happen. I'm trying to be, I guess I'm being a devil's advocate here. I'm just, if we didn't know how high those were, we never knew whether they were going to interfere with the signal or not. Is that a fair statement?
I would think probably yes, and actually I more at that time we tried to make sure that Mr. Cooper was okay with everything. So when, and like I say, he was at the meeting that day, so that's all really that I knew. I'm not sure. Sometimes when we see towers with the antennas on, they're very close to each other, so we don't exactly know without being the specialist on that area or the owner of the specific antennas. We don't know how close they can be. Certain frequencies interfere and some do not. It depends on the down tilt of the antenna itself and some other things like that as to where they were or were not going to be able to interfere with each other.
Okay.
I have a point of clarification though, Matt. Those antennas have not been moved in recent weeks or months. They're where they were when they were installed.
Yes, they are where they were installed, and again, the Verizon Tech, the contractor that was coming up, he was not going to move the antennas nor install larger antennas. He was going to install the radio, the little box basically that's behind that antenna.
Okay.
They were going to upgrade that to help with the capacity issue. I talked to the Verizon Tech, and he said that he wouldn't actually foresee those antennas being changed for many years because multiple cities around us have better coverage and better capacity and multiple frequencies that right now we do not have, that helps with that capacity issue, and that they use the same antenna that we currently have on the tower. They just have a different radio behind it.
Okay.
Matt, would it, is there interference, or could there potentially be, and I don't understand the technology, so I'm asking these questions, and hopefully Chuck will be able to jump in here and say yes or no. Would there be, we're assuming the interference is only coming on a vertical plane, so to speak. Could there be interference coming from a radio plane? In other words, if WHLC's antenna is at the top of this pin and the other ones are out here, and we're kind of working on this idea, but could it not also be the distance away from the antenna on a horizontal plane?
They can. The farther away, as far as horizontal distance, the farther away that they are, the easier the other frequencies will propagate around them, or essentially go around that antenna. But at this close of a distance, probably another 1 or 2 feet moving it horizontally out wouldn't change a lot of things.
Chuck is on here now and should be able to speak.
Can you?
Hey, go ahead,
Yeah,
Chuck.
can you hear me now, guys? Yeah,
Yeah.
can you hear me, Matt?
Yes.
Yeah,
Ken?
very good. The original agreement, yes, I was president at that meeting, but the original agreement with Verizon was that they would keep a minimum of 1 wave away with the top of those antennas, because I didn't know the length either. They never told us what the length were going to be. Maybe they didn't know at the time, but the antennas were to be at least 10 feet apart. That's 1 wave. And I asked for 20, which they verbally agreed to. Then they told me that I could be president, as I was for the construction of the last 20 feet of the tower on several occasions, till we got that done with Matt's crew that the town used, which did remount our antenna prior to Verizon coming onto the site. And they agreed to let me be present to make sure we had that separation. Turns out they did not let me know that. I was out of town and unavailable and completely gone when they did it. So they actually mounted closer than they said they were going to mount. They went as high as they could go to the very top of the tower and mounted from there. There are 2 cross leg installs on each one of the legs and spaced them out. The problem came up that Matt mentioned a few weeks ago, because the technician that had the job in hand called me and said he had to move the antennas in closer to the FM antenna. In other words, they were going to move them closer into the leg of the tower that we were mounted on. And I objected to that, as well as we said that we needed to kind of get this straightened out. And had he looked at it, he had not at that point. He later did go up and climb and look at it and call me back and told me that we were actually only about 5 feet away from the top of the antennas, and that he felt that we were just getting into a further mess by moving the antennas over. Now, Matt, I had a conversation yesterday afternoon at 2:30, a conference call with Todd Arnold, who is the construction guy for Verizon. I'd never talked to him before, at Charlotte, and Mark Baldwin, who is the guy for our entire area for construction, who I'd talked to several times before. And they did not know for sure whether they were going to have to move the antennas or not. Josh, I know they told you they weren't going to move them, but Todd, who is actually more in charge, it's Mark is his boss, said that they may have to move those antennas to get the radios mounted the way they wanted to mount them. They're adding some radios to give additional service, which we're all for, as we were for the increase of the service from Verizon. The reason we moved, because we didn't gain anything. We just kept everything exactly like it was. We had to reduce power a little bit further because we went further up. So they are not sure at this point, and what we did come to the conclusion that we need to work something out to get this problem solved. They'd still like to go forward with the install, but they said they would get back to me. They did not today, with the drawings, and we would actually talk and see whether they were going to have to move the antennas or not. And also Todd Arnold is the guy's name from Charlotte. And he brought up the fact that they may someday down the road need to add additional antennas, which we didn't know. And so we have some coordination to do. And I think the problem arose from the fact that Verizon just went ahead and mounted the contractor, whoever that was, for Verizon when they did it, I guess, in 2017, Matt, or 2018, whenever that was done. Just didn't coordinate or let us know when they were going to do it, or that they were doing it. And if we had just had that opportunity, we could have solved this. We need 10 feet. That's all we're asking for. Now, moving up 2 feet, I was on the line, but you guys couldn't hear me. Moving up 2 feet, Matt, I don't know that, like you say, that's going to help much, but any separation would certainly help. The closer it gets, the worse it gets. The bottom of our antenna is radiating down to Main Street. That's where the signal is very important. And these antennas are very close, Matt. I guess you couldn't measure, and the only way you could do that is go up there to do that. And
Correct.
The technician that waved off the job and said he did not want to do it or get involved in it and walked away from the job, Ascentech was the name of that company, said they were way too close already. And if he moved the antennas like they had anticipated they were going to do or needed to do for the additional radios to hook up to the antennas, he would get even closer. So the
Correct.
problem is the way we see it is that the town is of course the landlord, and the county gave permission for both of us to be there, but we were there first. We agreed not to interfere with anybody. We don't want to interfere with anybody, certainly, and cause anybody problems, and be good neighbors. But these guys are, Verizon, yeah, it's a big company. They're a major company, a $1 billion company, but they're coming in on top of everybody else who was already there and just kind of doing what they wanted to do, and just said, hey, we're there. And so we just need to work out some way to get these antennas to get more separation. And whether that means us being able to go higher or them to go a little lower, I don't know what the solution is, but they don't want to assume responsibility for any expense in doing any of this. And it's not going to be free. I mean, somebody's got to pony up for it. So that's the situation we find ourselves in right now.
Chuck, could I ask you a question? On
Certainly.
your licensing with the FCC, is it a 100-foot center mount, or is it a not to exceed, 110-foot center mount, or not to exceed 110
Matt
feet?
mentioned 100. Matt mentioned 108, and I don't have those. I don't have those files. You remember the history of this? Verizon walked away for a couple of years when this project first started, and then they came back. I believe that it was probably as Matt described it. I'd have to go with his recollection because I don't recall whether it was 108 or 110. The pole is 10 feet tall, and we're just part of the way up the pole. So it would be possible, perhaps, Matt, to move that thing up for our antenna to move up 2 or 3 feet. But you've only got so much headroom to be able to do that because of the pole. Number one, we may have to have a new pole. And number two, because of whatever the license actually says. We mounted, of course, to the specs, just like Verizon said they did, but the center radiation on our antenna is a whole lot different than theirs. Theirs is a long, narrow antenna, and ours is kind of round with that. That's a radome. That orange thing that Matt showed, I wasn't able to see it, is a radome that keeps the ice off the antenna. So that antenna is not very big. Our antenna is not very big.
Right.
So they are. Go ahead.
Chuck, I was wanting to ask if you could look at your FCC license, if it gives you the allowance to do a 110-foot center mount, then from what I can tell, I believe that we could move you up 3 to 4 feet, providing there's enough slack in your cable. And
right.
I think that would give quite a bit of extra clearance there. And then that may actually solve the issue.
Yeah, Matt, were you able to tell about how is it 5 feet? That's what the technician said it was. When they called me,
There's probably I would say there's 5 or less feet between you and Verizon right now. Verizon's antennas are 8 feet, and they're mounted at a center mount, which it's a little bit lower than center mount. So there's about 3 and a half feet above the top of the tower and about 4.5 feet below the top of the tower. And then your antenna, the pole was actually not mounted all the way up. So it's actually not 10 feet above the tower right now. The pole height is 8 feet, and then your antenna is mounted below that. So the center of your antenna is actually mounted at around 6.5 to 7 feet above. So it's at about 107 feet. So I think if we moved you all the way up to 110, there'd be quite a bit of clearance there.
Yeah, if we can get to 10 feet, Matt, that would do it electronically. 20 feet would be better, but that's not going to be possible with everything already there. But 10 feet would certainly be a whole lot better than 4 feet, or the worst case would be, and I know they've said they don't have to move the antennas, but they told me yesterday, that was a 2:30 call that lasted about 45 minutes. They told me yesterday, Todd Arnold, who actually is more in charge of this than Mark Baldwin, is his boss, as I mentioned, but Todd told me he was not at all sure that the original plan that they had told me about a month or so ago, the Ascentec plan that they presented to me, was they needed to move the antennas to be able to mount those new radios. And of course, I asked about wind load. That's not my bailiwick as far as the tower is concerned, but we do have, the more we add, the more wind load we get, and that is a factor. I mean, we need to keep that in mind, because if that thing ever, it's a stout tower, a very stout tower. When we designed it originally with the 80 feet, it was there, and it's been beefed up some as well, but I'm not privy to those specifications. And they have added a closed microwave dish, Matt. That was the last minute thing, as I recall, because they couldn't daisy chain it and couldn't piggyback it. They had to actually put in a microwave. Ours is an open parabolic that's there, so that passes the wind. But the one they mounted is a big closed antenna. So the more you add up there, the more radios, the more wind load we get. And they didn't have the answer to that yesterday. So they were I'm concerned from the standpoint, naturally it's not our tower, but certainly if it somehow we had ice loading and it did come down, we're all in trouble. I mean, we're not only is the cellular in trouble, but we're in trouble, and our auxiliary antenna will do no good if it's not there. And we do have an auxiliary further down, which we can go to in times of emergency. So, Matt, we're willing to work and try to do it however it can be done. But I think the bottom line is it's going to cost somebody some money, and I don't think, from what Verizon's telling me, they're not responsible for it. This is what they said 6 or 8 years ago when we first talked to them, and that's the reason that we got the town involved to help us and protect us, because all we're doing is just moving for their benefit and for the service to the town, of course. And we're happy to do that, and did do it, and we'll continue to work with everybody to do it, what's necessary. But we got to get some separation there.
So, Matt, are you able to look into the logistics of getting that moved up a couple feet?
I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. We actually need to do a lightning rod on the top of the tower as well. So I don't think that's going to be such a big deal. I think we need to put the lightning rod up anyway. So I don't think, as long as Mr. Cooper is okay with that, I think we can just look into having his moved at the same time when it's all there. If the board is okay with that.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I have some experience in this area. I went out there today and I saw a number of safety violations, Jay, and they concern me. I really think we need to have a third-party professional inspect what's there, look at any intermodulation problems, and make a recommendation. And I mentioned this last year, so I mention it again.
What are your safety concerns, Commissioner?
There's some real trip hazards out there. And I mentioned them last year, and we've got to get these things fixed. We can't let things go like that.
When you say trip hazard, Mark, are you talking about something on the ground or something on the antenna?
Cables laced through the ladder on the side of the tower. I'll be glad to show you a picture. I took it today, outside the fence.
Now, this has not anything to do with the radio station. Ours is in good shape, isn't it, Mark? We don't have any problems.
I don't know whose cable it is. I just know there's cable on the ladder going up the side of the tower, and somebody needs to go out there and look at it, and we need to get it fixed. I did inspections. That's terrible.
That's not our cable. That is ours is secured as it was originally when the tower was built. I was up there the other day as well, and I always look at it. So that's something else. I don't know what I'm not sure what that is.
What does the board want to do on this?
Let's get take it a step at a time here. Can we just go ahead and look at the feasibility of moving WHLC up a couple feet?
I think that's a good idea. Just go with that's the low hanging fruit at this point.
Yeah, and then as far as the trip hazards, if there's any kind of safety concerns, then yeah, we need to address those. I don't know if that's something Matt can address or if that's something we got to get a professional in to tell us what those things are. But like, let's just deal with one thing at a time here rather than.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, Brian, but it's not safe for anybody to climb the ladder today. It's not safe.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that interlacing the cable with the steps, if that, or the ladder, if that's what you're talking about, that was in the installation, and somebody needs to correct that, whoever installed it. I mean, we didn't install it. We contracted somebody to install it, right? I mean, we can point out safety violations, but somebody else, whoever put that cable in there, is responsible for correcting safety violations.
Seems like you're talking about Verizon needs to be made aware of this.
That's right.
Yeah.
How long's it been, Matt? How long's it been since anybody installed a new cable on that tower? To your knowledge,
It's been quite a while, Buzz. As far as I know, we can take a look at the tower to see if there's any concerns, any trip hazards or anything like that, and we're going to be using a company, even if it's to clean up a mess. We'll use the company to do that as well. Make sure
look at the safety issue.
I think we certainly can.
Yeah, couldn't it be the same company that's doing the antenna raising?
I think so. Should be able to.
Well, there you go.
So let me ask, is and maybe Mark, you know the answer to this. When this was installed, is there no inspection that says it's done correctly?
You know, that's the biggest problem. People do plans and people build stuff, but people don't always go back and make sure it's built correctly. That, if Lamar was still on the phone, isn't that the biggest problem in the world, Lamar? People don't build things according to plans and specs all the time.
Right, but is there not an inspector, just like a building inspector or a plumbing inspector or electrical inspector, that comes in and says, yes, you did it right, sign off on it?
Well, I had a dozen people on my tower, so I had an annual inspection. I think it's time for us to have somebody do an inspection, third party do an inspection of the tower, look at everything and tell us a professional opinion. What do we need to do to fix it? And then how often do we need to do an inspection going forward?
Okay. I don't think we're going to solve this tonight. I would ask Matt to do this research for us about inspection companies and report back to us. Would that address this issue at this time for everyone?
Mayor, I
That
just
works
wonder
for
if
me.
the county doesn't have somebody inspecting their towers. Surely they do.
I can take a look at into it and report back to the board.
Okay.
And it seems to me that Mr. Cooper's talking about coordinating with Verizon about what they're going to do before we do anything, because we may have to redo something if they're going to do something different. Then we need to come to some sort of agreement of what the top of that tower is going to look like before we do any messing around. That would be my take.
Yeah.
Okay.
And why would we need to come to an agreement if we're not touching it's our tower? If we're not moving Verizon's antennas, why do we need to come to an agreement?
Well, if they add more to it.
Oh, well, if they add more, then it's a different ballgame.
Mr. Cooper and Verizon need to come to an agreement of how they can both coexist on that tower. We're not putting it up. We built the tower. It's our tower, but they need to have the coexistence. And I don't want to referee their dispute.
Okay, I understand that.
Gets back to Matt, if you'll take all the concerns that have been raised and report back to the board at the next meeting on how we should proceed with the issue between Verizon and WHLC, and also issues of safety and inspection.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, everybody in agreement with that? That's the way we should proceed.
Well, I think we need the initial agreement of 108 feet or 110 feet. Which was it? I think we need to find that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Time to research.
Right. Somebody needs to look at the licenses, and somebody needs to look and see if there's any intermodulation, if they're too close or not. That's exactly right.
Okay.
I'll get with Mr. Cooper and we'll look at his FCC license to see how he's licensed, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, good. All right, let's move on. It's getting late. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda, number 12, COVID protocols and a discussion. As you know, we on August the 2nd kind of followed the governor's suggestion and lead to require masks inside our town facilities. To be quite frank, it's been kind of a mixed bag in that we've still had a breakout of COVID within the town facilities. My question I wanted us just to look at is, do we need to do any other things to address this issue of the spread of COVID? For example, the governor spoke yesterday and kind of was encouraging towns and municipalities to respond based on the fact that we're all in a pretty much a hot zone of spreading of COVID at this point. The question should be, would we want to impose a mask requirement in businesses in town? I've talked with some of the business owners and there's kind of a mixed response to that. Do we want to go back and change our signage downtown from just a suggestion to more of a recommendation, or even wording that's even stronger than that? I know the police chief is very concerned about trying to enforce something if there isn't a general statute or a state, statute that we can fall back on. So I just wanted to talk, what should we do? Or should we hold the pattern that we're in now?
Mr. Mayor, I think what we're doing is working to the best of its ability. I don't know that instituting anything any more stringent at this point is going to make much difference. Certainly, that's easier to say than it is to actually deal with. But what, as far as your discussion with the retailers and the merchants in town, what's the split on what they want to do?
Some merchants would say if the town had a stronger policy, if you will, an ordinance or something, they'd feel more comfortable trying to enforce it. Other merchants say that they think that's, over the top, and would create confrontations in businesses that they would like to see avoided.
Sure. Well, I think certainly there's personal responsibility, and I don't think we ought to do anything. If a merchant wants to put a sign in their window requiring a mask to come in, that's their right and ability to do. And the fact that they might want us to be the bad guys, I'm not real sure that I want to step into that.
And Commissioner Dotson, I'd say this: if a merchant said masks were required and someone walked in and refused to wear the mask, that person can be asked to leave. If they refuse, then the police can come and order them out on the grounds of trespassing.
Absolutely.
If it came to that.
Absolutely. Or if they don't have a green shirt on.
Yeah. What's the other feeling of the board?
I'd concur with Buzz on that. I'd like to keep following the state what the state's doing, and I don't want to get into a situation of the police having to be issuing citations to people on the sidewalk for not having masks. I think, like Buzz said, every business has the right to require one, and again, I think that's where we leave it.
I will say I am concerned that this is spreading. I was hoping that the governor would be more proactive, and my feeling is that if we see that from the state, we should mirror and comply with what the state is recommending. But right now, I was real surprised yesterday at the press conference that I thought they were going to actually start taking those kind of actions, and they haven't. Okay. Shall we move on to the next item, number 13?
Mayor, I would like to bring something up if we're finished with that.
Yes.
Portion of the COVID issue with masking. One thing that, if you remember back when the first state of emergencies came in, the federal government said that there would be a requirement for employees to have 80 hours of COVID sick time. So we followed that for some 8 months or so. And if someone got sick, they had the symptoms, they stayed out, they got tested, and they were paid for that time. When late spring, early summer, when the cases dwindled down, we decided to go away from that. The requirement was lifted. We went away from that. Now with what we're seeing here, in town hall, the public works department, is we've got a number of those people that those employees that are going to be out for potentially two weeks. Quarantine time is 14 days. My recommendation would be to bring back that COVID sick time and pay these folks for the time that they're actually out. Macon County has continued to pay their folks the whole time. They didn't ever lift that, and they're continuing to, as far as I know, at this time. So my recommendation would be to bring that back at this point.
Can you discriminate at this point versus people who were vaccinated versus those that weren't?
Jay might want to comment on that from a legal standpoint.
Well, I can tell you, it doesn't matter if you've been vaccinated or not, you can get COVID.
Well, yeah, but the symptoms are potentially much less severe, apparently.
I'll talk to you about that sometime.
Yeah.
My opinion is that yes, you can require that. I know there's a lot of people that says that it's against the civil liberties, freedom that they may have, but public safety has always trumped any kind of civil liberty that anyone could ask for. And if the governor had said this town could implement additional requirements about that, then I think that we would be okay to do that. But as the mayor's pointed out, the governor's not taking that step to declare an emergency situation again like he did a year and a half ago. And I don't think the town's going to be in a position to require anything along those lines. In private business, you can require it all the time. I require it in my own business. So, but as a town, I don't think you can take a move until the governor says emergency powers are re-implemented.
So the question at hand is, should we go back? Josh, did we suspend that special sick leave policy with COVID, or did that just become a practice that we started doing?
Again, it was a requirement through the federal government. We had to do it, and then it went away at some point. It expired, that state of emergency. requirement expired, and then the cases obviously dropped, and we stopped doing it after the requirement. So Macon County Board elected to continue on with it.
So we'd have to make a formal motion then to continue with the federal policy on sick leave with COVID.
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't be opposed to doing that. I'm just saying you could use it as an incentive for employees to get vaccinated. I mean, the doctor that we met with a week or two ago, he said it himself, 98% of those people that are in the hospital are unvaccinated. So obviously that's a bigger hit to the town's financial to the insurance costs over time. Someone being vaccinated or unvaccinated. Being out for 2 weeks at home is one thing. Being out 2 weeks, being in intensive care is another thing.
Well, I feel like, number one, we don't have a federal policy at this point because it's expired. Number two, I would think that the federal policy probably was expired because of multiple reasons. Number one, the COVID cases were dropping. And number two, probably the federal government figured, okay, everybody has had time enough to be vaccinated. And I'm not, while I certainly hope and pray for the best outcome for everybody, I'm not sure that I'm on board with saying, okay, it's kind of like, I think maybe what Brian's saying. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to misinterpret what you're saying, but I'm not sure that I want to continue to struggling for the politically correct word, to pat the folks on the rear end and send them on their way home for 2 weeks when they've had 8 months, 9 months going on to get a shot.
I wasn't prepared to discuss it. Can we table this till the next meeting?
Well, this is critical because we have folks out. We've got people that are going to be expired of time because
they don't have sick leave. They don't have sick leave or annual leave.
They have leave, but if they're having to be out 2 weeks plus, depending on who it is, they won't have the time.
Josh, are these people that are sick, or are these people that are having to quarantine because somebody in their crew was sick?
Yeah.
Well, right
There's
now,
no quarantine.
Right now, we're dealing with sick individuals.
Okay.
Now, quarantine occurs as well, but mainly what we've dealt with are folks that are sick with symptoms that need to be at work, that are following the health department's guidelines.
If we were to table this, could we not go back and make this retroactive at a later date?
I think we could always do that.
Yeah.
We do have some payroll that's coming out next week for some of these people that need it now or not.
My feeling though is on this, where we stand right now, is I would be in support of paying these individuals. My comment was more or less just using this as some kind of incentive to encourage others to get vaccinated, knowing that. But I mean, it's a little too late at this point for that. So,
well, there's no good answer to this question. We obviously want to support our employees, but at the same time, we don't want to reward them for reckless behavior, what I consider reckless behavior. I'm kind of with Buzz in the sense that they took the risk. We gave them a shot for free, give them time off to get the shot, whatever it took, and they didn't take the shot. Yeah. And it is a public health crisis that we would really encourage them to do. So why are we rewarding them, or at least not making them be accountable for their own actions if they did not get the shot? Now, maybe you get the shot and you still get sick. And if you got the shot, I have no problem with paying your whatever it is, because it is in fact a pandemic and anybody can get it. But if you didn't take the available precaution, then you take the consequences of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Josh, I believe part of our folks have been vaccinated who are sick currently, correct?
Oh, we've actually got 2 that's had the first shot.
Right.
3 that's had the first shot.
And that first shot has come when?
Within the last few weeks.
So after our meeting at the rec park, people took the initiative to do that?
Yes, we had 5.
August the 6th, Josh, when they got their first shot.
Right.
Get their second one a month later, then it'll be another month before it's
2 weeks before it's effective.
But I would say give those folks credit for stepping forward.
Yeah, I would.
To get the shot. They may be a little bit late, but still they were willing to step forward. So, how do we proceed? Commissioner Haynes thinks we should table, but other people say it's kind of a matter of making a decision now.
Well, I think the question Brian had earlier is for Jay was, can we in fact discriminate and pay some people because they got the shot and not pay other people because they didn't get the shot? And I think the answer is probably no.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, I would lean towards paying them.
I lean towards not paying them. And I think Amy certainly makes a more succinct point than I did.
Well, I'll make a motion. We do pay them and encourage those that haven't been vaccinated to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would want to modify that motion that we do it for another month and try and get the people to be vaccinated. After that, we will not be doing it again, or maybe it's 2 months, but put a time frame on that so that we actually do encourage them to get vaccinated.
I can go with that.
I agree, Amy.
Okay, so your motion would be then that we pay contingent on the folks have 30 days to step forward and get a shot.
I would
After
say
that period,
I would say maybe 60 days.
I would say that we would continue to pay for whatever it is Josh wants us to pay for, the time off, the sick leave, whatever it is, for the next 2 months, and then it's over.
And why
that gives everybody
I'll add that to my motion.
The month period to get a shot now, a month from now, and 2 weeks later to be as immunized as they can be.
And why would we want to say that again, Amy?
Which part? The 60 days. Is that what
The 1 month and the 2 month and the
okay. If I got the shot tomorrow, I can't get my second shot unless I take the Johnson & Johnson, but I can get the second shot
exactly
for 30 days. And then 2 weeks after that is when I would be full immunity.
Okay.
Okay.
I could go along with getting the first shot within the next 30 days.
Well,
I don't want to wait 60 days before they get their first shot.
Yeah, no. What I'm saying is the benefit ends in 60 days because that has given everybody a time to get both shots and become fully immunized. And after that, we will not pay the overtime. I mean, the sick leave, the whatever it is, because we have given them an opportunity and we have set a deadline for them to get this shot. 30 days, you don't have time to get fully immunized. And so if I get sick in 31 days, you're not going to pay for me, but I'm trying to get where you want me to be.
I make the 2 month cutoff part of my motion, Mr. Mayor.
Would you say that again,
I make the 2-month cutoff part of my motion.
Okay.
And would you restate that, Donnie?
I make a motion that we give the benefits up to 2 months from today, that they be vaccinated within the 2 months completely. After that, we'll cut off the benefits if they are not vaccinated.
Okay.
No, we cut off the benefit. Well, yeah, okay.
Okay. That answers the question. If they were vaccinated and met that time frame, still got the shot, I mean the virus, even though they were vaccinated, you'd continue with that benefit because they had gotten the vaccine.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, but
All right.
you're not going to be able to do that because that's going to discriminate from the people who don't get the vaccine. Okay. You can't, everybody has to be treated the same. And tell me if I'm wrong, Jay. But if you have the benefits for one employee, you got to have the benefits for the other employee, regardless of whether they've been vaccinated.
My thought is that if you vote on Donnie's motion, that you'll be okay because you've given full notice to everybody about what they need to do, when they need to do it, what kind of benefits they're going to get, and if later on, after that motion is passed, they don't do that, then it would not be discriminating against them if they were denied benefits for having failed to comply with what you offered them to do. So I think Donnie's motion is okay. And it'll take care of your people 2 months from now if somebody else gets sick.
Okay.
So let me be clear. If you are vaccinated and then this 2 months pass and you get sick,
You're still covered.
Okay.
But
You
if
get
you're
the full
not
coverage.
vaccinated, in 61 days, if you're not vaccinated, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Right.
If you get,
Everybody's covered now, but in 61 days, if you get sick and you're not vaccinated, you're not covered.
Right.
Correct.
you are
That's my
vaccinated
opinion.
and you get sick. If you are vaccinated and you get sick, you are covered.
Exactly.
But if you're not
Yes.
vaccinated and you get sick,
Yes.
you are not covered.
Correct.
Correct.
okay.
All right.
Thank you.
We have that motion on the floor from
Second.
Commissioner Callaway. We've got a second. Any further discussion?
Just want to be clear, Josh, they would get 30 days. Is that what you're saying? If they get COVID and they're vaccinated, they get 30 days of leave. Is that what you're saying? I'm trying to understand.
No, 14 days or whatever.
14. All right.
No, they get whatever they need.
Yeah, or whatever the doctor directs or instructs them.
Whenever the health department
60 days for 2 shots.
I don't know that we need to, I don't know about that whatever they need stuff.
Well, it's whatever the doctor
You're
tells
going
them.
to get a doctor somewhere that says you need to go home for 6 months.
No, 14 days
No.
is the max
Yeah.
that we've seen.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a standard already set.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
All
what
right.
I'm saying is if you get vaccinated and you become a long hauler and you have long-term health problems, our health care should still cover you.
Yep.
What I'm trying to do is incentivize
but
these folks to go ahead and get a
if
vaccine.
you
It's going to be less likely that we're going to have
We're
a lot
not
of
giving them full, we're not giving them full show up for work pay after 14 days. After on the 15th day,
Right.
the health insurance takes over and they get
Yeah.
right,
where the health insurance deals out.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I think what both Buzz and Amy said are correct. If you go ahead and get those shots and you get them within 60 days, then you're going to be good. And if it's a long hauler situation, you're still going to be
Good.
okay.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
if you didn't take advantage of this in the next 60 days, then that was your decision and you are SOL.
All right. We have that motion on the floor and a second. let me go ahead and call the question here and take the vote. Commissioner Patterson, your vote?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Callaway? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dotson?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Steeler?
Aye.
And Commissioner Haynes?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Josh, you and our personnel director can notify the employees and implement that policy. All right, the next item, number 13, and that is closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11 A3, attorney-client privilege, to discuss legal issues related to short-term rentals. Do I have a motion that would go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Can I ask, is that the only thing we were discussing? There was another letter.
We actually,
Correct.
I think Jay has something else he would like to discuss as well.
We had another issue that will be in regards to Shelby Place.
All right.
And application to get approval for the recordation of a map and the transfer of this property.
Okay, that'll be discussed.
And the threat or the implied threat of legal action. That's why I wanted to move that to a closed session.
All right. We've got that then too, the Shelby Place legal discussion and the short-term rental legal discussion. Both are issues that lawyers have put forth for our consideration. Do I have a motion that we go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right, let me just take a quick vote. Commissioner Patterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Callaway? Aye. Commissioner Dotson?
Aye.
Commissioner Steeler?
Aye.
And Commissioner Haynes?
No,
No.
no. We got 43 people on the 34 now wondering what in the world we're going to do about short-term rentals. But I vote no.
Okay, and after we come out of closed session, we can make a statement about where we are headed.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know how they're all going to get the word, but great.
Well, does that mean you would not want to participate in closed session?
We can excuse Mr. Haynes.
Well, the word usually when the word goes out after our closed session meetings, it goes out for whoever wants to stick around. And obviously these folks are not allowed to stick around, but the press is notified first thing in the morning so that they can notify the public of our decisions. So it's not like that we're doing something and nobody will ever know, because at the end of our closed session meeting, hopefully the mayor will call for an adjournment, and that will be forthcoming, and these people will not have a chance to make any input no matter what.
Well, actually, in this situation, we could come back into open session, take a vote on which direction we want to go based on what our attorney has advised us, and then I can announce that, and if anyone wanted to stay around and hear that, they certainly could do that. Rebecca, is that possible?
No, they will have to log back on.
I thought you clarified that we would not be making a decision tonight, Mr. Mayor, at the beginning of the meeting.
It will not be a decision per se. It might be simply a directive to our staff and attorney on issues, or it might not be.
But
That could be given to the press.
But we could post that somewhere, the press, the website, have them call in and you'll get a recorded message that tells us what they're doing.
Right. Rebecca, could we post the statement on the website?
Yes, we can post the statement on the website. We can do whatever we need to do like we've always done.
Okay. Well, we will do that as soon as we in the meeting, so people will not be left wondering what we're doing.
So Jay, if Mr. Hain votes no, can he be excused?
He can.
I don't understand why he would want to stay in the meeting.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Let's continue on.
Okay.
As long as he has no comments in the closed session.
Johnny, I think voting, having an issue with whether this should be discussed in public or in a closed session doesn't mean that you don't want to discuss it. I think he should be allowed to discuss it. He's not saying he doesn't want to discuss it. He says he'd like to discuss it in open session. Because we believe that, and our lawyer advises us that there are legal issues that we need to discuss, we can discuss it in closed session. But that doesn't mean that Mr. Hain is right or wrong. He still
That's
has
not
a
what
right
he said. He
to discuss
said no going into executive session.
Right, and he got outvoted. So
Thank
we're
you,
going
Amy.
into executive session, but he doesn't necessarily have to leave the executive session because he didn't want to go into the executive session. At least that would be my
Amy's
view.
right. Amy's right.
That's fine.
Okay.
Hey,
So
Rebecca, before I get off here, I don't want to interrupt anybody. It's showing me as the host and you as the co-host. If I leave, do I need to do something here?
You should be fine, I think.
Okay.
I think it'll immediately go back over to me.
Okay, perfect.
Well, wait a minute. Doesn't he need to stay for Shelby Place, Mayor? Don't we need to do Shelby Place? Isn't that involve Lamar and the planning folks? That's a question.
I can cover that issue.
he can. Josh will be happy to do
Yes,
that.
it does.
And Josh will be present.
Okay, so I can get off here. I'm just
Go
double
for it.
checking.
I want to go to bed.
All right.
Be
Can I get
careful.
off?
Everybody have a great evening.
Thank you.
See you,
And
Michael.
Rebecca, would you now just put us into closed session?
You are in closed session.